Okay, thank you, Chair. We're live.
Thank you, Rachel. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome members and Aon to our March meeting and a new one, an afternoon meeting. It's no half day Friday today, is it? So good to see you all. Thank you for joining us. Oh, hi Trish. Trish is back on. So brilliant. Agenda. Apologies. I think Chris has said Hugh might be joining us later. He's trying to get in. Oh,
Yeah.
his family.
Hugh is going to try his best to attend later on, Chair. Yeah.
I think everybody else is here, isn't it? Lovely. And besides Gerard, I'm not sure if Gerard's going to join us. So we'll see how we go. Declaration of interest. I'll declare I'm a member of the Powys Pension Fund.
Yeah, the same as well, Chairman, the usual one.
Adam, Arwell, Karina. Oh, okay, Rachel. Thank you. Minutes of the last meeting on the 15th of the 12th. It seems a long time ago, but they've been circulated. Can I sign them true and correct record, please?
Yeah, happy to move, Chair.
Seconder. Watching the screen. Okay, lovely. Thank you, very happy. Right, thank you. Okay, I don't know what we do now. Received information, the draft minutes of the meeting held on the 9th of the 2nd, the pension board minutes. Should we skip that part in case Gerard joins?
Shall I pick it up, Chair? Because I was at the meeting.
Yeah,
perhaps.
Sorry, thanks, Chris.
So I'm not the chair of the board, but I was there as secretary to the board.
Excellent.
The usual discussions were taking place. A couple of things probably that the chair would want us and to make a committee aware of. That's to point out that there's been a deep dive into the governance pillar of the risk register, which is an item later on in this agenda. So just drawing attention to that, we'll cover that in a bit more detail later on. Quite a long discussion took place around the pension regulator's new code of practice. Again, that's covered separately in an item later on our agenda, so I won't go into it here. The board received very similar updates to what you're going to receive in terms of administration and governance, but a lot of the meeting focused on the new code, requirements under the new code, and that's to do with training, cybersecurity, etc., which I'll update you on later on. So if I've missed anything that Chair wanted to raise, I'm sure we can circulate it after the meeting, if that's okay.
Brilliant. Is that so? We just jotted this note the minutes, or we do with the minutes. So are we happy? Just note the minutes of. Okay, thank you. Item number 5, administration and governance report. Over to you, Chris, as well.
That is me. So I'm just going to try and share my screen, Chair. If that's okay. Hopefully. You should be seeing the administration governance update. I've got 2 screens on the go today, so hopefully you're seeing the right one, which is the one with the PDF report on it. Can you see that screen?
Not yet.
Something just disappeared now.
Apologies. Try that. Has that come through?
Well, no, that's the paper, isn't it? It's the start.
Paper.
Yeah. Is that the actual? Can you see the administration governance paper there? Is that okay?
Yes. Yeah.
Update.
Okay. Apologies. Technology. It's great when it's when you know what you're doing with it. Okay. So thank you very much. Hopefully you can all now see that. So this is the usual governance and administration update that I provide to committee on a quarterly basis. There's quite a lot in there. So what I thought I would do, in the interest of time, if that's okay, is just pull out the pertinent points from the report. But obviously, I'm happy to discuss any items that the committee might want to go into in a bit more detail. So with that in mind, I thought I might jump to 2.2, and that's just to make committee aware that the department have published its response to essentially the pooling consultation that took place towards the end of last year, and their response quite closely reflects what was in the consultation. So we responded to it, the consultation, and the Wales Pension Partnership did as well. Obviously, with being around pooling, the pools felt they should submit a response as well. And there's quite a strong view expressed from Wales that we think it's working in Wales, and we'd like to try and continue on that basis if we're able to. I guess the biggest challenge around that was that the government are looking for scale in terms of size of fund I'm talking about here, and whether the Wales Pension Partnership would actually ever get up to that scale was one of the challenges I guess that we could face. But nevertheless, the response went in, and now the department has issued their response around that consultation as well. So just for information, that point is. 2.3 is perhaps a bit more close to home when it comes to the funding of the fund and our employers. So essentially, at the last valuation back in 2022, believe it or not, several funds and employers found themselves in a surplus position. At Powis, we haven't quite got that issue. We're around about 100% funded, and we only have a couple of employers that have exceeded 100% funding, and only by a couple of percent. But some funds have seen themselves in a much better funded position, 110, 120% potentially. And that has raised some interesting questions because the LGPS has never really been in this position before, where they've been so well funded. With regards to some employers who are in a surplus, are asking what they do with that. What can we do? What can we do? The fact we're 120% funded now, how's the fund going to help us with this? So it's caused quite a few discussions nationally, which prompted the Scheme Advisory Board to release this statement about what funds should be thinking about when it comes to adjusting employer contributions, maybe changing your investment strategy, de-risking, etc. So they've basically given the funds some guidance on how to try and treat these cases, and remembering that funds are a long-term entity. We're meant to be here for the long term, so making any short-term decisions now could have an impact in the future. So really give some thought if you're going to change something at the valuation, how that might impact things in the future. So it's been a useful document. And as I say, the Powis Fund is not in this position yet. We may well get to that stage at the next valuation. We'll have to wait and see. But nevertheless, at the top of page 23, it's just reminding committee that we do have an employer policy, which is published and actually covers some of these items as well, about how we will treat a surplus and how we will treat deficits and recovery and whatnot. So it's pleasing to see that the statement issued by the Scheme Advisory Board, it does help some of our colleagues around the country with what they have to consider. 3.1 is just letting committee know there's a new minister for the LGPS, and I was at a session with him last week, so I was interested to hear what he was saying and what his thoughts are on the LGPS for now and in the future. But I won't go into that now. I'm sure we'll hear a lot more about that as time goes on. 3.2, McLeod. You'll be fed up of me talking about McLeod over recent months and years, probably now actually. But the McLeod legislation is now live and in place. It was implemented from the 1st of October 2023. But there have been some cases that the administration team have not been able to process because they've been waiting on some guidance on how to treat them. Transfers is an example. That guidance has now come through. So any of these outstanding cases are now being worked on by the team in accordance with the guidance and legislation. There's still a couple of outstanding areas which they're waiting for guidance on, so that will follow in due course. Is that just? I can see you're looking at the screen share. Is the writing big enough on the screen? Have I zoomed in enough?
Yes,
Yeah,
I can read it.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
fine by me.
Yeah,
Okay.
good.
Pensions regulator, 4.1, just talking about them releasing their annual survey results. The hyperlink is in there for you to go and have a look in some detail. I won't go into that in any more detail than what's in that bullet point, because I want to spend a bit more time looking at 4.2 and 4.3, if that's okay. I'll deal with 4.3 first, because it does actually pick up 4.2 as part of it. So 4.3 is the introduction of the new General Code of Practice from the Pensions Regulator. To date, the LGPS has been operating under Code of Practice 14 of the public sector codes of practice, and the regulator has spent recent years trying to consolidate all the existing codes into one code, which they've now completed and done, and it comes into force from the 27th of March. So in 5 days' time, we now have to follow the new pension regulator's code. So we have seen it. Whilst it's different to what's in Code of Practice 14, it's not significantly different in that it completely has to change the way we think about governance of the fund. But there are stronger emphasis on a few items, which is a couple of reasons why they're on the agenda later on. There's quite a strong focus on training of committee and board members, just to ensure that we have appropriate training, ones that help you as committee members be comfortable and up to date with all the changes, the rapidly happening changes that we're seeing in the LGPS at the minute, but also on really strong focus on cybersecurity for obviously the right reasons. So to help us with that, in 4.2, they've actually released or revised, I should say, their cybersecurity guidance. So there's a hyperlink in there for you to click on and view should you want to. But there'll be a lot more work being carried out by me and colleague officers at the fund in terms of cybersecurity and cyber training over the next few months. Now, as officers, and I believe committee members as well, there's a mandatory cybersecurity training that we have to do by being employees and members of Powys County Council. So we're in a good place. We do provide, or annual training is available to us. However, obviously cybersecurity is very, very important, and things can change overnight almost. So there'll be a strong focus on that in the coming months. Whilst the code takes effect from the 27th of March, the regulator fully accepts that not everybody, or if anybody, in fact, is going to be 100% compliant with the code from the 27th of March. So what they've said is they acknowledge that, but they want to see schemes and funds putting a plan in place. So identifying any gaps or potential areas that need strengthening, and putting a plan in place and measuring progress against that plan. So you can't sit there and do nothing, basically. They will be checking that if we have got any gaps we need to fill, what are we going to do about it and when are we going to get there? So we're just working on that at the minute, and work's going to continue on that. But a change to the governance of the fund, and not a significant one, but it will have an impact on myself and the team in terms of making sure we are compliant with the code. So I'll be working with the Pensions Board on that one as well. Pensions dashboard, I won't spend too long on this one, other than just to remind committee members, this is the idea behind this is that it's I hate using the term a one-stop shop, but essentially it's the one website portal that pension savers are able to log into, and the portal will then access all the pension systems or pension schemes that this member as pension saver is a member of, pull all the information and data into one place and present a figure on screen. Brilliant idea, insofar as it saves pension savers having to remember 4, 5, 6 different logins for different websites. It'll do it all for them, but obviously it places a strong emphasis on our data being up to date. If the danger is, I guess, if our data, or we're holding something correctly on the system and it pulls that back to the pensions dashboard, it can generate potential queries for the admin team. So it's a bit of an unknown at the minute because we don't know what's going to happen until it goes live, but we are working on making sure our data is in a good place for when we do actually have to go live in a couple of years' time. Okay, moving swiftly on. Now, this is something that will need committee approval. Item 6 is just to advise committee that at the last Pensions Board meeting, the board took their annual deep dive into the governance pillar of the risk register and made some very, very minor tweaks in terms of perhaps expanding some wording around the controls and measures to make sure it was clear the processes that we have in place. But they did identify one risk which felt we needed to actually increase the risk around it, and that's to do with single person risk within the fund. I think it's quite rightly identified that there's some significant risk being carried at the top of the pension fund structure with my post on the Pensions Administration Manager post. And should anything happen, then it's making sure that we have processes in place to be able to manage that situation. So the board recommend that we increase the scoring on the Govern 0003 to a higher score. So if I click on this to the right, hopefully it should take us straight through to it. So in front of you, you can see the governance risk register. And here is just the changing risk. This line here is just identifying that the risk level has increased basically as a result of the increasing risk on single person expertise. And I think that's just related to experience. The two of us sat at the top of the structure are the ones with the most experience within the fund. So obviously losing either of those potential people in those seats does place a significant risk onto the fund. So the board have acknowledged that. So we'll be looking today to see if committee are happy with increasing the risk level. I think it was a 6 and a 6 before, up to a 9 and a 6. As part of this review the board carried out. So I will pause there. I've been talking very quickly. So any questions from committee or
any questions? David.
Thank you, Chair. Chris, with regard to that risk, is there any way of mitigating that then?
I think there probably is. We have got a business continuity plan, David, which we do work on with Jane as 151 officer. We did a restructure a couple of years ago. I can see the chair of the board has appeared. Afternoon, Jared. we did some work on the structure, and the intention was that some of the risk that's carried in my role, for example, is actually shared with the pensions administration manager. So all these reports I'm delivering to you now should, in theory, be being delivered by the pension administration manager, but we haven't got to that point in time yet. So I guess the best mitigation is around resource, making sure we've got appropriate resource at those senior levels to be able to try and shift some of the risk around, or spread the risk around, I guess. So one of the items we'll come on to later on is what we've done to help with these sorts of risks at the lower end of the structure. But we have identified that we are carrying this risk at the top. So work's going to take place in the next few months to try and see what we can do about it.
Okay.
Thank you, David.
Okay.
Anybody else? Any other questions? Okay. Oh, Gerard, I was wondering, would you come?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Sorry, I had trouble getting in. Yeah, I mean, Chris is probably far too modest to say this, but there is a lot of competition for the likes of Chris and Megan. And it's a very competitive industry. And good people are in demand. And I think what the board was recommending really reflects that. It's an issue that really goes beyond the boundaries of powers as such throughout the industry. And it does apply, I think, to anybody in pensions within the LGPS. I know of one small England fund who lost 2 key staff to a London borough because they were allowed them to work remotely and still get London weightings. So from the board viewpoint, we can see that the risks have been increased since COVID, and there's more locality doesn't seem to matter now in terms of this key group of staff, and we felt it needed to be reflected in a revised risk rating.
Yeah, thank you. I completely agree with you there. It is Jane.
Yeah, just to give the committee some comfort, really, that Chris and I are looking at this very closely. We've already, I think committee will remember that we've already looked at resource and put some additional resource into the team to meet a lot of the extra legislation requirements that we've had to put in place. So just to say that we're continuing to do that, and I'm trying to support the team as best I can as well through this, but we will look, and if needed, we will be bringing something forward to increase resource further if we feel that is the appropriate way to go.
Yes, because far more, well, I know with Chris, there's far more work, and as you know, Jane, there's a lot more inquiries. We're very topical at the moment, and where we're investing and everything, and it's all extra to the workload.
Absolutely.
There's more reports to do, and it is, I quite agree that it is difficult. Thank you, Jane. Any more questions? No. Does that conclude your report?
It doesn't. I will just cover back point 7 on the report afterwards,
Okay.
Chair. But whilst we're looking at the risk register, I guess at this point it seems appropriate for if committee are happy to accept that recommendation.
Are you happy to approve them? You mean approve amended risk register? You mean that's what you want to do now?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Can I have a proposer seconder, please? Thank David. Adam. Are we happy with this? Thank you.
Yeah, happy.
Lovely. Thank you. Okay, Chris.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just scroll back down. This next bullet point is actually linked to this subject, actually, so it's probably appropriate that we discuss it now. So section 7 is looking at the pension section update. So we're talking about resource at the top end of the structure here, but we also, with the implementation of the McLeod legislation from the 1st of October, saw a dramatic impact in the administration team in terms of the work they had to carry out. So ultimately what it's meaning is that the pensions team are now having to carry out a check to make sure that certain groups of people who have left are no worse off under the career average scheme than they would have been under the final salary scheme. So overnight, they've had to effectively do 2 separate end calculations to check, which in some cases have doubled the work. So we spotted something very quickly. This was becoming an issue. So I worked with the Section 151 officer, Jane, obviously, and the chair and the vice chair to act swiftly on this and reallocate or get approval to reallocate resource around the existing team. So we made some tweaks to a few job descriptions, which actually opened them up and allowed different bits of work to be filtered down to different members of the team. And in addition, we changed the way we did some of the checking to try and help with managing this workload. So 7 is basically just to update you to look. We say, look, we spotted an issue with the administration team. We acted swiftly to try and put measures in place to make sure that that's helped to the team. And as far as I'm aware, it's been greatly received by the team, and we'll see how those changes have helped over the next coming months. So I think the message is that LGPS is a challenge at the minute, so we're having to act swiftly to try and meet these challenges as they come up, to try and adapt. So just for information, really, committee, we did make some small tweaks to the structure to try and help with that. Okay. Section 8 is just the usual breaches register to say there's been no new breaches added. However, in terms of employer performance, we are closely monitoring it and are in communication, or about to be in communication with our employers to make sure that performance meets the standards we're expecting. So that's going to happen in accordance with the published Pensions Administration strategy. So should anything come up as a result of that exercise, I will let committee know. So that was it really for this report, Chair. It was just to provide some updated information to committee and to get approval for the risk register, which I think you've already done. So
we've done the approval risk register. So just to note this report now, isn't it? We've done the
yes, please.
approval. Are we happy to note this report, please? Thank you. Yeah. Okay, great.
Happy.
Thank you. Okay. Item number 6, training needs analysis.
Yes.
Again, Chris.
Yes.
Again, a very topical subject. This is now.
Well, it absolutely is, and partly because of what I've just talked about, the pension regulators' new code of practice. There's a really strong emphasis within that code on training for committee, board, and officers. So it's vital that we ensure that we have appropriate training plans in place, and that we make the training appropriate for yourselves, as I say, to make sure you're comfortable and have the required level of knowledge when it comes to talking about pensions and whatnot. So I just inserted section 1.3 just as a reminder for committee, because they might not be aware that there's a couple of places within one in the Constitution and the Governance Compliance Statement, which states the expected training expectations that the fund places on committee members. So if you weren't aware of it, I put 1.8, 1.3 in for information for committee. And the way we go about this is by sending out our annual training needs assessment form. So this is me giving you the heads up that I'll be sending this form around after this meeting to say, please, can you complete the training needs assessment form and be as open as honest as you can, because any areas of potential development I see within those training forms helps me build an appropriate training plan for you. So I realise it's a bit of a pain because it's quite a lengthy document. However, I think it's important because it does try to cover the whole spectrum of everything we deal with at the LGPS. So once this meeting's passed, early next week, I'll be sending the training needs analysis form around for you. So that was it, Chair. I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add.
Well, yeah, so 1.3, every members, you can note 1.3. Simon Hall, I listened to him in a speech the other day online. That's the way they're moving. One of them almost make us more professional, almost the way they are the trustees. The training, that's the way they're working, and it's going to be more training in the future. I can see it coming. So yes. It's how important is that if you could, we'll do online, but in some I talked to the Welsh Pension Partnership, different funds, and some I got different enforcing more training plans. They have to do so much. And we have a register, so anything you attend, Chris, you take a register.
I keep a log, yeah.
But I think it'll be good just to present a log if members are happy to show how our training is going along. Would that be possible, Chris? Each member.
Yes, I think so, Chair. I keep a log for many reasons, because one of the requirements under MiFID is for us to demonstrate that our decision makers, i.e. the committee, have the appropriate level and amount of training. So I keep a log of all the training that you guys go on to, which is why I ask you to tell me when you go. But I'm sure I could present something, so perhaps I'll share that with you, and then you can have a look and see if you think that's appropriate.
Excellent, thanks, Chris. Gerard.
Thanks, Chair. Just to supplement that, the Scheme Advisory Board not long ago did a survey of both committee and board members about the amount of training they've received, and I was at that event, and I've submitted to Chris an analysis of what the evidence is of that scale by both committee and board members. So it gives us a bit of a benchmark in many ways, Chair.
Oh, thank you, Gerard. Yeah, very important.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Gerard. I was pleased to see that based on the log that I've kept, that our training is actually close to the top third of the actual scale. So it was pleasing to see that as well. But yes, so yeah, please can you send the form back when it comes out? I guess is the end.
And one thing about all this now, be Teams, etc., it's made on online learning, making training much easier. When I first started, we had to go different places to train, didn't we? Or have somebody to the committee to train us.
So training days in County Hall, for example, or we've travelled to Bristol for various training and whatnot. Yeah. So
it's much far easier now to sit at home. But please, Chris is always sending events or webinars, something to attend. If you can, it does help you understand better than just sitting to listen to a training session. I've been away a lot I think about 6 days this last month, and you only can take a little bit in at a time. You can't take it all in. It's ongoing. Karina.
Sorry, I was just going to say that Hugh and I was on this rethinking investment, and we've done 2, or maybe Hugh's done 3 of the 4 courses, and they're amazing in some ways. Very, very thought-provoking. A lot of information that's over my head, but we'll keep going.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent. Cheers, Karina. You can't take it all in at once. It's just little bits at a time. So we're all learning. It's continuous. Okay, then. Is that finished, that report?
That was that report, Chair. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. So that was just for
information
only, really, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay. Item 7, governance and compliance.
Yes. Thank you. You'll be getting the picture. There's quite a lot about governance in this meeting pack. It's purely coincidental that the pension regulator's new governance code is coming out. So this is basically an opportunity for us to review where we are with what's expected of us by the regulator. And as it happens, this governance compliance statement appeared on my list of work to do for review. So there's been a review carried out of the governance compliance statement, very light touch. It was still very applicable and very appropriate. So it's just presented for committee's information. There's probably a few years since you've seen it. But if you are happy with the content of it, it's essentially to just approve that you're happy with the updated version of it. As I say, I have changed very, very little, perhaps a grammar adjustment here and there, but nothing within the content has changed at all. It's exactly the same as what's been approved previously and been published. So it's really over to committee for any questions, and I'm seeking approval if you're happy with it.
Thanks, Chris. Any questions? Can't see any hands up. Okay, then. Can you approve this report, please? Yeah, thank you, Adam. Anybody else? Seconder, please. Thank you, Errol. All happy? Great. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Okay. Item number 8, Wales Pension Partnership update. Chris again.
Apologies, everyone. It's me again. Yes, so this one, a couple of items that I want to draw out of this report rather than go through it, because all the attachments are there for your information to read about what the WPP have been up to. The latest JGSB Joint Governance Committee meeting was actually held in the Powys offices on a hybrid basis a couple of weeks ago. So it's quite nice for everyone to be able to come up to Powys and meet in person, actually meet in the council chamber, which we haven't done for a few years. So the attachments to this report are in respect of the regular quarterly updates the WPP provide. But one of the things that isn't actually included as one of the attachments, but is a hyperlink, is in 2.6. I think it's an important step forward, and something that committee probably have a strong interest in. It's to do with the fact that the WPP have now published their All Wales Climate Report. So if you've not yet had a chance to read that document, it is hyperlinked in 2.6, and it just provides a bit of a roadmap as to where the WPP started in 2019, effectively up until 2022. So it is a little bit out of date in terms of the timings, but it's the first one they produced, so it's a really positive step forward, and it does show the positive direction the WPP is taking when it comes to moving towards net zero and climate action and whatnot. So I just wanted to draw your attention to 2.6. But this report does require approval of one item, please, committee, and that's to do with the 24 to 2027 business plan. This was presented to the Joint Governance Committee at the meeting on the 13th of March. And
last
the joint-
Wednesday. Sorry, Chris, last Wednesday.
Guys, it seems like a long time ago. Things are flying. So essentially, this business plan has been agreed by the Joint Governance Committee, but the way that the governance structure works and interaction between the constituent authorities and the WPP requires it to be approved on a local level as well. So if I just flick to it, I'm not intending to go through it because it's not my document at the end of it. It is a WPP's document, but this is what they're looking for approval locally. It has been approved by 2 funds that have already met since this meeting on the 13th of March. As I say, it has been approved by the Joint Governance Committee. So hopefully the committee have had the chance to read it and are comfortable with the content. And if so, again, I'm looking to approval, and I can then get back to WPP to advise them of that. Okay. Happy to take any questions if I can answer them based on the document.
Chris, Arwell.
Might be on mute, Arwell.
Doesn't say on mute.
Can't hear him.
Yeah, it doesn't say on mute. Arrow, we can't hear you.
Right, can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's it.
That's
Yeah.
it. Sorry. No, the WPP report on the climate change. Do they give a date when they come into net zero or not?
No, I think the difficulty the WPP have, Arwell, is that they look after 8 funds, and 8 funds have a
different dates.
different date. Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's my reason for questioning, to be honest.
Mm.
But okay, no, I'll read the report anyway, and if I pick up anything else, well, I'll come back to you. But no, that was my issue with we can't have a uniform date, can we really?
They've deliberately left it fairly high level to allow that
okay.
flexibility, I think.
Okay, lovely, thank you.
Any more questions? No, thank you. So what do I approve WPP business plan 20?
Yes, please. So note the report, Chair, and approve the WPP 24 to 27 business plan, please.
Okay, thank you. Can I propose and seconder, please?
Happy to propose, Chair.
Thank you. Seconder? Thank you, Karina. Are we happy? Looks like everybody's hands up. I'm sure Adam will put his hand up. Lovely. Cheers, Adam. Lovely. Thank you very much. Next, RI, responsible investment. I think that's a joint effort between you and Aon, is it, Chris?
It is. You'll be pleased to hear some different voices. And I don't want to tread on Aon's toes too much with this one, so I might hand over to them fairly swiftly. But this is just to present that the first responsible investment subgroup met earlier in the month. Hopefully everyone found it useful. It's a group that's open to obviously committee officers and the fund's advisors. I'm pleased to say there was representatives from all of those at the group earlier in the month, with the intention to discuss this massive topic of responsible investment. As you'll be aware from recent meetings, it takes up quite a significant time on the agenda because it's so important. So we set up this subgroup with the view to try and free up some time on the committee agendas and present information to the committee to make decisions as appropriate. So I think from the actual subgroup meeting, a couple of actions were decided, which I'll hand over to Aon to go through afterwards. But there are some immediate pressing items that we need to really work on to make sure that things are up to date and where they need to be. So perhaps I'll hand over to Aon here, because I know you've got some supporting slides, Aon, if that's okay. Kenneth, are you okay to come in?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Chris. So yeah, just to build on Chris's initial comments there on the meeting. It was quite an extensive meeting. I thought we spent a couple of hours within the subgroup, really initially recapping on the journey that the fund and the committee has been on in the last 6 years, actually, or so. We started in 2018 on the really, considering responsible investment in more detail. Of course, it's been around for longer than that, but in terms of a sort of structured process, we've been working on it since then. Initial training on objectives and focusing on sort of fossil fuels exposures, for example, back in 2018. But things have really evolved very significantly since those initial discussions. As Chris mentioned, it is a huge topic and actually getting bigger all the time as well, with new areas being asked of us to think about in our responsible investing approach. But in 2019, we gathered committee's initial beliefs. Those of you who were around then may remember that we asked you to complete an online sort of beliefs document in a number of areas, and it's actually something that we thought would be helpful to ask you as the current committee just to recomplete, just to gather more up-to-date beliefs. So that's maybe something that we'll come to you in the near future to ask you to complete online. It's a very straightforward thing to do online. And then following on from gathering those beliefs, we created your responsible investment policy document, again back in 2019 as well. Since then, of course, we've been focusing on other important areas. TCFD, so the Task Force for Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, has been an area of great focus for committee in the last few years. Ultimately, that will result in a TCFD report that will be prepared for the Powis Pension Fund. The sort of legislative requirement to do that is yet to be confirmed in terms of the timescale, but we're well ahead of that, preparing well for that sort of formal requirement in terms of where we are today. And then really the meeting we had a few weeks ago really focused on areas that we'd like to take forward from this point. And really the main aims agreed at that meeting were, first of all, to update the responsible investment policy document for the next meeting, which is scheduled for July, taking account of beliefs as appropriate there. And then also focusing in on completing the TCFD requirements. And TCFD itself is actually quite a big area. It covers 4 pillars around governance, strategy towards climate-related risks. So that's measuring the risk. And we did a bit of that, you may recall, as part of the last actuarial evaluation, where we modeled the potential impact on your fund's actuarial position from different sort of climate-related outcomes. So the strategy part has been developed. There's a little bit more work to go there to complete strategy, but that has been well developed so far. And then the third and fourth pillars around TCFD are around risk and analysis. And then fourthly, sort of metrics and targets. And that's where your net zero target is likely to come in, and it's planned to discuss that further, of course, over subsequent subgroup meetings. So we covered all of those areas. As I mentioned, the 2 main objectives for the next meeting are to develop the RI policy document and also take forward the TCFD requirements there as well. In terms of the next page here, so they're summarised there. There's other things, of course, that are just really ongoing in relation to responsible investment, and that's really developing a structured training programme for you. Certainly any new manager selections in the future, whether that's through WPP or directly outside of WPP, if there are any of those in the future, then of course incorporating the underlying investment managers' capabilities in RI was identified as an important ongoing requirement as well. And then I mentioned just agreeing on your particular target for net zero will also be important as well. So lots of progress to date, but equally lots of areas for us to progress even further over coming months and years.
Yeah, great. So that was, I think, unless there's any questions from committee, over to committee now to for any questions or just noting, essentially, Chair.
Thank you. Adam.
Thank you, Chair. And yeah, thanks for the summary. Can I just sort of focus a little bit on the left-hand side of that, potential actions and order of activity? Because obviously the first one was completion of risk-related, climate-related risk project. Can you just give a little bit more flavour? Because it says further work further discussion required over 2024, which is a bit open-ended and loose? Can you give a little bit more flesh on the bones of what is happening over 2024 and what we can expect?
Yes, so thank you, Adam. So I guess in terms of strategy, the sort of TCFD framework actually sets out, there are 3 subparts to the strategy pillar. 2A, 2B, and 2C is how they're referred to. So maybe I could just almost read them out to you so that you're familiar with those. So 2A requires funds to describe the climate-related risks and opportunities that have been identified over the short, medium, and long term. 2B requires funds to describe the impact of climate-related risks and opportunities on the organization's business, strategy, and financial planning. 2C requires a description of the resilience of the organization strategy, so that's the pension fund strategy, taking into account of climate-related changes, including a 2-degree change in global temperatures. So of those, we've completed 2C. That was done as part of the actuarial evaluation. You might recall the detailed modelling that was done then. So really, it's focusing more in on sort of 2B and 2C, which are less quantitative in nature. They're more qualitative, I would say, really just describing views, under these particular areas. So we've done the analytical work. It's more the non-analytical work, I think, that's required under the strategy pillar.
And just to follow it up on, because we saw the modelling. If that's the modelling we saw probably about 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think within that modelling there was a time frame, and we were losing the longer time frame of particularly. And I know we've now got a responsible investment committee, so my encouragement really is, can we have that modelling back in for interrogation as part of that responsible investment committee? Yeah. So I think the modelling half satisfied my curiosity, and then half triggered more questions and answers. So it'd be good to really get to the heart of that. And on the back of it, obviously, its impact on the funds. But the second part of my question, and this might be as much you, Chris, is agreeing on a net zero target. And I suppose that the question was raised by was earlier, wasn't it, by Gerard, I think, about because the report from the Welsh Pension Partnership doesn't give the targets, and I wanted to get a sense of our target, particularly in relation to other Welsh pension funds, that lay of the land, because it's hard to do some of these things in isolation. So the modelling is deeply important, but equally understanding who else is doing what else in Wales. Is there a picture that we can get painted?
I can collect that for you, Adam. Yeah, a simple answer is I think it's different for everybody. Each of the funds have a different one, which is why it's so open at the WPP policy level, I think. So leave that one with me then, and I'll share the dates that other funds might have set around Wales. I'm aware that not all of them have as well. So where they're available, I will let you know. Yeah.
Yes, some haven't committed yet, have they, Chris?
No. But I think the approach is. Sorry, Adam. I think their approach is, whilst they're not committed, it doesn't mean they're not doing anything.
No.
And I think this All Wales Climate Report does show that things are happening at the WPP regardless. So same as us, really. Whilst we haven't committed to a date as yet, the committee will be aware of all the work that's been going on to try and bring us to this point as well. So, but yeah, I can certainly collect those dates for you, Adam, and share with the committee. No problem.
Okay.
And do we have a plan within our sort of 2024 programme to get ourselves to agreeing a date? And is that via the Responsible Investment Committee subgroup?
It would be committee that agreed to that. So it could be that the Responsible Investment Group brings some information to committee. Yeah, but committee would be the formal entity that would agree any dates. Yeah.
Yeah, because subgroup can't make decisions. It just puts the ideas to the committee, don't they, Adam?
Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you. Okay, then. Thank you. Does that actually conclude, Kenneth, or more to add?
No, thank you, Chair. That concludes from my perspective.
Yeah, okay. Me too, Chair.
Anything else to add, Chris?
No, that's it. It's presented for information, really.
Yeah, so it's just to note. To note the committee. I'd be happy to note this report. Thank you. Adam, is that a legacy hand, Adam? Lovely, thank you. Item 10 is exclude press and go into our private session, excluding press and public. So over to you, Rachel, to end the recording, is it? Or live recording?
Thank you, Chair. Just bear with me a second.